Has suspended its provincial treasurer Mandla Msibi for misconduct. Msibi's membership has been suspended for 3 years for violating the party's constitution. 2 years have been suspended, provided Msibi is not found guilty of a similar offence in that period. In January, Msibi, Sibusiso Buta Mdluli and Mandla Mhlanga were temporarily suspended after they allegedly demanded that President Cyril Ramaphosa come meet them in Benar on the day of the January 8th celebration and threatened to sabotage the celebration. Provincial ANC Secretary Muzi Chirwa says the three appeared before the party's disciplinary committee.
The membership of Comrade Mandla Msibi is suspended for 3 years, for a period of 3 years. Then on Comrade Mandla Mhlanga, on all the counts that were put before, the PDC unanimously agreed that he was not found guilty. Then on Comrade Busiso Buda Mdluli, on almost all the counts, he is found guilty. And the sanction is expulsion from the ANC with immediate effect.
The widow of the late SACP General Secretary Mbohani has torn on the ANC, saying it has failed her husband and the people of South Africa. She is speaking at the 31st commemoration of Chris Hani's death at the Thomas Nkobi Memorial Park in Ekurhuleni earlier this morning. She says despite the gains made over the past 30 years of the ANC governance, a lot still needs to be done.
We have challenges of electricity, load shedding, which has contributed to job losses and factories closed. The cost of living is extremely high. Food prices have gone up. Petrol prices have gone up. Transportation has gone up. Why is the government not cushioning our people on electricity? Why is the government not subsidizing our people on staple food?
In other news, the EFF in the Northwest-based Rustenburg Local Municipality Council said it is going to file a complaint with the Human Rights Commission against the municipality for not providing water to residents of Platinum City. This is as the Rustenburg Local Municipality is facing serious water provision challenges. It appears that the issues affecting the two water service boards, Magalies and Randwater, are hindering consistent water provisions, leading to the implementation of water cuts. EFF Provincial Deputy Secretary Justice Dambab.
The Rustenburg municipality under the ANC has failed its responsibility to ensure that our people have basic services such as water. Children could not go to school today, courts could not operate today because of there is no water in the entire municipality. You also have an entity called the Rustenburg Water Trust, which is just sitting there milking money from the municipality without providing any meaningful services to our people. We are going to write to the Human Rights Commission. We are going to lay a complaint because this is depriving our people of their basic rights.
A police officer has been arrested and appeared in court for allegedly running over his colleague with a vehicle in Rotan outside Marble Hall. Sergeant Calvin Ramala allegedly ran over the victim, a constable from the same police station, using his private vehicle. Police spokesperson Hlulani Mashaba says the 43-year-old constable has sustained serious injuries.
The victim and suspect are both working at Rotan police station. It is alleged that the 42-year-old male was driving his personal grey Chevrolet motor vehicle with a colleague to the direction of Mokopane under Waterberg district when he knocked down a 43-year-old male victim at the roadblock. The victim sustained serious injuries on the head, leg, and was later transported to the hospital for medical treatment.
And lastly, Emergency Ministry in Kazakhstan says almost 100,000 people have now been evacuated from their homes due to flooding in the northern part of the country. Russia has also been badly affected. The BBC, Stephen Rosenberg, has more.
Spring flooding has affected large areas of Russia and beyond. In neighbouring Kazakhstan, more than 96,000 people have been evacuated from the flood zone. In Russia, meltwater has overwhelmed settlements in the Ural Mountains and western Siberia. Russian officials say that so far, more than 10,000 houses have been flooded as rivers like the Ural, Europe's third longest, have burst their banks.
Recapping the top story for this hour, government has confirmed that e-tolls will officially be scrapped by midnight. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Leading the conversation.
Welcome to to the stories that warm your heart and ignite your spirit every morning on Expresso. Do you know a young hero making waves in your community? We want to hear from you. Share their inspiring stories with us on our WhatsApp line 063-408-8863, and let's celebrate their achievements together. And here's the best part. You could join us live in studio to tell your story. Expresso Morning Show, every weekday morning at 6 to 9 a.m. only on S3.
South Africa is facing an increase in people diagnosed with non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, cancers, hypertension, lung problems and obesity. This also increases the number of people living with these diseases and mental health.
Many people living with these preventable diseases may not be immediately aware unless they go for health screening and testing.
It is our responsibility to invest in our healthier future through regular physical activity, healthy diets and avoiding risky health behaviors such as alcohol and tobacco use.
The Department of Health urges people to go for regular health screening for early detection and effective treatment if they are diagnosed with any of these conditions.
This message is brought to you by the National Department of Health.
2 years since winning the EFC middleweight title in the most dramatic and controversial fashion, Luke Michael finally defends his belt for the very first time at EFC 112 against the imposing submission machine, J.P. Kruger. And in the co-main event, featherweight champion Iga Smiley Cabeza becomes the next athlete aiming for champ status as he battles the imposing Kaleka Block Kabanda. EFC 112 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
malawe, oh milo malo. If you want go wash, now what are you go use? Toba fesebe, oh milo malo. If you want cook soup, now what are you go use? Tori bangbo na oh milero re. If your head is hot, now what are you kulam? Tomo bandagba oh milo malo. If your child they grow, now what are him go use? If water kill your child, now what are you go use? Back mama oh me no lo malo go so to le shake oh malo mi oh nothing without water go so to le shake oh malo mi oh me you water oh me you water if you fight them unless you wonder I say water
So engrossed in the sounds of Fela Kuti, regarded as the king of Afrobeat, and of course described by allmusic.com as a musical and social-political voice of international significance, that it was easy for us to lose track of time. Good afternoon to you, and a hearty welcome to the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on this fine Wednesday afternoon. The beautiful thing about once the rains have passed and the rains are behind us now, according to the SA Weather Services, is that the skies just look that much crisper. The skies look that much bluer. The clouds look that much whiter. The trees ever so green. It's a beautiful thing to behold the days after a good rain. Even though we do concede that this one was on the destructive side, particularly in Cape Town. That was Fela Kuti with Water No Get No Enemy, and we played this song, on purpose. Says everything is thought out on the show, because it's going to lead us into our very first conversation this afternoon, as we have a conversation unpacking the history and the legacy of Fuji music in Nigeria with Professor of History and African Diaspora Studies at the Florida International University, Professor Saheed Aderinto. But before we get into that conversation, let's perhaps dip into the first episode of a documentary that the good professor has put together. It is called the Fuji documentary, and it's a docu-series that charts really the history and the impact of this incredible music from our West African neighbors.
Greetings. From a country on the threshold of disintegration during a 30-month civil war in the 1960s, the 1970s in Nigeria ushered in a major cultural and artistic revolution made possible by millions of dollars in revenue from the global oil boom. In the process, Afrobeat was born. Juju finally left the shadow of highlife. Pop music, jazz, rock and roll, reggae all found comfortable homes in dance halls across the country. The cultural rebirth of the 1970s reached its climax in 1977 when Nigeria hosted the second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture. The most spectacular spectacle of cultural display in post-colonial Nigeria. This documentary is about Fuji, one of the numerous musical creations and recreations of the period. Today, Fuji is the most dominant of the Yoruba musical traditions, influencing so many other genres, including Afrobeat, hip-hop, and even gospel music. Shops in libraries, museums, galleries, archives, art centers, universities, private homes, and public events across southwestern Nigeria, in Europe, and of course here in my home office in the United States. The first episode of the Fuji documentary tells the incredible story of Sikiru Ayinde Barrister, the man who created Fuji. Welcome to Mr. Fuji, Barry Wonder.
And of course, that is all but a snippet of Fuji, the docu-series as put together and produced by Sahid Adarento, who's a professor of history and African diaspora studies at the Florida International University. And he joins us now via Skype for a conversation. Good afternoon to you from my side, Prof. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Much excited to be in conversation with you about this incredible sort of legacy of Fuji music. And I think maybe let's start there. You know, a lot of South Africans obviously now familiar with Afrobeat sounds, and we've been enjoying them for many years now. But Fuji music. Give us some context and some history of this particular sound and its genesis within the lineage of West African music.
Thank you so much for having me. The genre began as a kind of a seasonal musical tradition called wiri. It is usually performed during the Ramadan period, and that's always a month during Ramadan. It's an Islamic tradition that blends African musical traditions with Islamic traditions. And of course, Islam was introduced to the southwestern part of Nigeria over several centuries. So up to the 1970s, Fuji, the musical tradition that led to Fuji called wiri, used to be performed only during Ramadan, and that's always, a month during an entire year calendar. But during the 1970s, a combination of structural, artistic, and creative transformation paved the way for the transitioning of Fuji from wiri, which was, again, its historical ancestor, to kind of a secular music that is performed not only throughout the entire year, but with several other musical instruments that expanded the sound and, of course, the lyrics and, of course, the worldview.
And as you say, that it's a blend of African music with traditional Islamic music. And I wonder, so does that imply that at some point, before it evolved to circular and commercial music, was it more of a spiritual and sort of like a more religiously revered musical form?
Yes, it's used to be a spiritual and religious music. And again, it used to be performed only during the period of Ramadan, which is 1 month out of 12 months. And so even, and the religious element of it has to do with the Islamic tradition. And of course, the lyrics are in Yoruba and Arabic, but the message is very religious and very spiritual. But like I said again, in the 1970s, a lot of transformation in the Nigerian art scene paved the way for the transformation of Fuji from a purely religious, spiritual genre performed every month, performed only once in a month in a year, to a kind of all year musical traditions performed throughout the year, and of course, it became a secular music beyond spiritual.
What were some of the elements, Prof, that were at play, in the 1970s that sort of led to Fuji music now becoming more circular and more commercial?
Well, it was because there was oil boom. The 1970s in Nigeria was the era of oil boom, and that was when Nigeria made a lot of money from the global oil trade. And the money was so enormous to the point that it affected positively virtually all aspects of Nigerian popular life, art life specifically. It transformed Nigerian music, it transformed Nigerian art, it transformed Nigerian consumption habits. And so it was the wealth that came through oil that fueled the art world. And the art world, of course, Fuji was part of the art world. So the point and emphasis is that the secularization of Fuji took place because artists discovered that they could make a lot of money by making it a kind of an all-year-round music, and a secular that matter.
And of course, let me also ask you this. So the 70s, because of the oil boom, obviously presenting, as you say, a change in consumption, a change in culture. At this turning point, is this also when the music sort of became a very distinct genre and was sort of categorized in its own separate platform from other genres at the time?
It went through a lot of transformation in sound. So it actually did not become what you can call a distinct sound until the late 1970s. So in creating sound, it blends a lot of musical instruments together. So people would say from Were, which was the historical ancestor, the one played in the 1960s, all the way to another genre called sakara. Sakara is a drum, just the one behind me.
Okay.
Here, and then all the way to Fuji. So Fuji, the transitioning from Were to Fuji wasn't a sudden one. There was a stopover to Sakara, and Sakara became Fuji. And of course, over these decades, from 1970s, a lot of transformation in how the music is played has taken place, to the point that it ranged from people still performing what we can consider as conventional or traditional Fuji to some other forms that are much more technologically advanced, some level of hip hop. So the point and emphasis is that what makes Fuji sound Fuji has changed over time from its organic form in the 1970s to a much more heavily cosmopolitan genre blending form of the 21st century.
Lovely stuff. We are in conversation with Prof. Saheed Adarento. He's a professor of history and African diaspora studies at the Florida International University, and is behind a brand new documentary that is bringing to us the history and the evolution of the sound of Fuji, and it's called the Fuji Documentary. We're going to continue our conversation on the other side of this. It's fast approaching 1:30 o'clock, and of course we've got the headline news, but our lines are open on 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. And of course, you can always also stream the show live via our social media platforms at SAFM Radios, where you can find us on X as well as Facebook and Instagram, or you can just log on to safm.co.za as well. Let's take the news headlines. We'll be right back.
Thanks, Bridget. In your news making headlines for this hour, the IEC has published the final candidate list for the 2024 national and provincial elections on its website. The name of former President Jacob Zuma tops the MK party list. In other news, government has confirmed that e-tolls will officially be scrapped by midnight tomorrow. The decision came as a result of an agreement between SANRAL, the Gauteng provincial government, and the National Treasury. And lastly, Judge Violet Semenya says it remains to be determined on whether all accused in the killing of Collins Chawani Municipality Mayor Moses Maluleke may be convicted based on evidence presented before the court. I'll be back at 2 with more on these and other stories. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Getting more money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC 1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial star 120 star 332# to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC 1.
When you vote on the 29th of May 2024, you'll receive 3 ballot papers. The blue national ballot is for political parties contesting seats in the National Assembly. The orange regional ballot is for political parties and independent candidates who will represent your area in the National Assembly. The pink ballot is for political parties and independent candidates to represent you in your provincial legislature. Vote where you are registered. Visit elections.org.za for more information. It's your democracy. Own it.
Come closer. Over here. Man, oh man, do I have something to tell you. Huh? You know what would happen if you weren't here? No SABC Sport, no Skim Sam, no Uzalo, no Deal or No Deal, no Too Hot to Be Single, no family meetings, no radio, no nothing. Just dololo, silence. But you, my friend, you make it happen because you pay your home and business TV license. Now we can deal or no deal celebrity, Mobango, Hectic 99 and Footspurter. So please keep on keeping on and do the right thing so we can make new memories and tell stories for the now generation. SABC TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
Stages, pages, screens, and more with Bridget Masinga.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, and we are in conversation with Prof. Sahid Adarento, and we're talking around the docu-series, the Fuji documentary, and this tracks and introduces some of us to the world of Fuji music. And now that we have an understanding of some of the history and the context around this musical form, let me ask you, Prof, you say that by the mid-1980s, right, Fuji was a staple in the Nigerian soundscape, but how has it been influenced, or how has it influenced more recent musical sounds that come out of West Africa? You know, sounds like Afrobeats, for instance, as we know it.
That's a lot of influence on Afrobeat. And like I said in the article you read, even some lyrics in some Afrobeats were drawn directly from Fuji music. The beats, you know, so it's only people who are familiar with the sound that can easily recognize the element of Afrobeat that is drawn directly from Fuji. So Afrobeat, you know, performed by different artists has some levels of Africanization, or some levels in which they draw significantly from different forms of existing musical tradition. So yes, so you're right. Fuji as Afrobeat has been drawing significantly from Fuji, not just in terms of the instrumentalization, but also in terms of the lyrics. And I give an example of a particular track, Anipowoshi, that is actually almost entirely from an existing Fuji song.
And given today's context, right, and sort of how music has evolved through social behaviors, and of course we see like cultural migration and cultural exports across the world. Does Fuji still sort of connect in its authentic form to audiences, and particularly new audiences? Are you still seeing that there's still that resonance that it has with new audiences globally, and not just West African audiences?
Absolutely. The cost of Fuji has continued to expand, not only because the artists are able to draw from contemporary realities to connect with their audience, but also because they are creative in deploying new technology and collaborating with artists from other genres. So it will continue to attract more and more audience because it's not just music. It's a way of seeing the world. It's essentially the way some people see themselves and their engagement with bigger issues about their society. So, different generations define their music, right? Well, one of the fascinating things about Fuji is that over decades, younger people growing up are still able not only to connect with Fuji, but also to be strong Fuji fans. Like I said, because the lyrics are directly connected to the way they see their own world. So, and this connection happens at two particular levels. On the one hand, it's at the level of what you can call conventional Fuji. That is the Fuji performed as long, dating to the 70s and 80s. And of course, the Fuji of the 21st century, which, as I said, represent continuity from the past and a lot of change also from the past.
As we wrap it up, Prof, the docuseries, the Fuji documentary, in the first episode, you introduce us to the godfather of Fuji music. Give us some history in terms of the subject of the first episode.
Yeah, the episode chronicles the life and times of the founder of the genre, because he was the one that codified the genre, transforming it into the kind of musical traditions that we have in the world today. And what I did in that particular episode is to use his times and stories to set the tone for the remaining portion, the remaining episodes of the documentary. In the 1970s, of course, he started performing in the 1960s. He started recording in the 1960s, but he started performing the wele, which is the genre that led to Fuji. He started performing it in the 50s. And in the 60s, he recorded his first album. And then in the 70s, he transformed it from what it used to be as a religious genre in the 1950s, 60s into a secular one in the 1970s. So the first episode the documentary started from where it should start, which is from the life and times of the man that created it. And through his stories, we begin to see the big questions about Fuji. We see questions of political patronage, we see questions of gender and sexuality, we see questions of press and politics of identity, we see how Fuji became globalized. So his story is a way to begin the documentary, not only because he created the genre, but also because he set the tone for much of how the genre was defined in the past and, of course, till today.
Yeah. Prof, let's leave it there for this afternoon. But I think, you've definitely sparked our interest in as far as getting to understand this particular musical genre more in depth, particularly as the founding base for what we all now enjoy as being Afro beats. It'd be nice to track back to the beginning phases of it through Fuji. That is Fuji, the docuseries is available for you. And of course, that was Professor Saheed Adarento. I appreciate the time with you. I know it was an early start on your side this morning, so we much appreciate it indeed. And he's a professor of history and African diaspora studies at the Florida International University, waking up bright and early. It's around about 7 a.m. In Florida stateside right now for the professor in order for us to have this conversation. It is 22 at 2 o'clock on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. Let's take a quick break here and then we'll come right back.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Saturday.
Time is going while I sit around waiting. What if they never find her? I should never have let her go to school. I should have known better. Catch me, Samson Kumalo, on the Saturday play. You haven't spoken to me since I came back from prison. Why?
Because I have nothing to speak to you about.
Oh, come on, Sego. Aren't you happy that Big Daddy's back? I missed you, you know.
Catch the Saturday play between 9 and 10 p.m. only on SAFM.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Okay, let's get straight into it. We are taking a look at Made in SA today, and we're talking all-day jam with our guest, Hunse Silaujwe, who is the CEO of All Day Jam. And this brand was born from his grandmother's heart and from many moments spent in the kitchen concocting and cooking up jam with his grandmother. He's going to tell us the story around how it all came about. Good afternoon to you, Hunse. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks, and yourself. Good afternoon.
I'm fantastic. All right, let's get straight into it. You know, All Day Jam, and it's a company that farms organic fruits and vegetables and then produces jams. And like I said, this is something that, you know, from what I've read, you grew up splitting your time between your grandmother and your grandfather, working the land with your grandfather, and then being in the kitchen with your grandmother.
That's true. That's absolutely true, ma'am. And at that time, I'm sorry to say this, I saw it as abuse at that time. I thought that they don't want me to go and play and have a great time with my peers.
I think you're not alone. Probably a lot of young people would have seen it as abuse at the time. But I mean, from that time, did those experiences with grandma and grandpa, I presume, Uti, they instilled in you a love for farming and a love for produce, which has ultimately resulted in your love for the product that you create.
Yes, ma'am, that's true. But then I didn't just be aware of that, thinking that, okay, this is the love that I'm getting from my parents. And I've said before that I saw it as abuse. But then one of the things that I really, really appreciate in my life that made me to be aware that, okay, this is something that I can do to create a generational wealth. This is when I attended the Step Up to Startup competition back in grade 11. So when I participated in that competition, I was required to make something that's going to help the community or the environment. I made a man-made coal made out of recycling materials. And unfortunately from that competition, I didn't win. But that's where I was introduced to the entrepreneurship world. Because when I was still in high school, I was doing maths and science.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an engineer. I didn't have any idea of being into farming or food processing. But then after I finished my matric, I had 1,000 rand saved in order for me to go and buy myself the pair of All-Star shoes, because when I grew up, I used to dance. This is one of the things that I loved in my life, dancing spanzola. But then I realized that instead of going there to the robots and dance, why don't I start the business with the knowledge that I've gained back in grade 11? And one of the good days when I arrived home, I found my granny that she has done the jam again. Then I said, no, man, granny, this thing, instead of us giving it to people when they come to visit us, or instead of us why don't we sell it in your shop? Then my granny said, why don't you do it yourself and start selling it yourself? Then I said, okay, because I have this 1,000 rand saved to buy myself the pair of All-Star shoes, let me just start this business. And that's how All Day Jam started.
Listen, I love the story because it speaks to, you saw an opportunity. Your plans didn't go the way you thought they would go, but you saw an opportunity to say, okay, I'm not going to be an engineer, but I've got resources. I've got, schooling to back me up, and there's an opportunity here for me to do something and build something that I own. And if anybody goes onto All Day Jam on your Instagram account, you're quite the hustling entrepreneur. There's videos of you hustling your brand in the corner of your community. There's videos of you exhibiting with the other producers and manufacturers. So where do you get the sort of, I guess, maybe even the blueprint on how to hustle in the modern context? Because there's so many ways, right, to market and get your product out there. And you seem to be using a whole different variety of ways.
Oh, okay, ma'am. So, firstly, I'm an artist dancer. I've said before that I'm a Pansola dancer. And when I was in grade 11, I remember when I was still in high school, sorry, not grade 11, I remember that we used to go with my team to dance at the robots, to dance for other corporates that would invite us to come and dance and promote their products. So this is where I actually got the skills from, because I knew, because whenever we go and promote when dancing, we knew that we have to sell this product in order for them to pay us. We need to make sure that we're selling this product. Even if tomorrow they need us again, they can call us again to book us for that particular gig. So this is where I actually got the skills. And again, I'm a person of people. Like, I was born a Kasi, so I take this thing that, I don't have to have fear, because around the community, I've talked with a lot of people. I'm able to engage with people. So why don't I use these skills in terms of engaging with the people that are around, in terms of selling my product? And why don't I use the skills that I've gained back when I was still dancing into the business? And now, what we want to do currently with the Pansola guys like I've mentioned, we are working on partnering with Outsurance in terms of Outsurance, to teach these guys on how to control the traffic on the robots. Whenever the other side of the robot is closed, we have the dancers that are dancing and people that are promoting the product along those cars that are still waiting. But then on the other side of the robot, the cars will be moving. We will be having guys that are already controlling the robots. So what we're saying to Outsurance is that, look, Outsurance, because you're already paying people that are already at the robots, why don't you pay these dancers that are already into the robots? Because now they're bringing value. These are the dancers. They are promoting All Day Jam, and they are promoting Outsurance at the same time at the robots. This is a great partnership for us in terms of giving these guys a job. So we're bringing a job opportunity to the Pansola dancers. And another approach that we're working on, because right now we want to get into retail stores and hotels. We are also available on the macro online store currently. But then are we going to grow our economy, our township economy? Because we are based in Orange Farm now.
Okay.
There's 2 schools that meters from our.
I mean, we listen. You're quite the marketer. You're quite the natural marketer. But we've run out of time. Quick for anybody that wants to quickly, get your jam. Where do they go? I know you're on social media. You're on Instagram, and
we are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. They can place the orders directly from those accounts, and we do courier them using the Pudo services. And they can also shop on the macro online stores. And we're looking forward into getting into new online stores like Zulzi, like your Take-A-Lot online store, including your Spaza as well.
All right, we have to wrap it there today, but you are definitely the dream realized. And he hails all the way from Orange Farm. It is a youth-owned company, this one, All Day Jam, as you heard. They already are in Macro, so you can find them at Macro online, or you can find them on social media, wherever you are. They are All Day Jam, and you can place. You see, he's a marketer. He's on streaming, and he's showing you the jam already. So if you're streaming with us, you get to see the jam. Let's take a quick one for Kids Corner, and then we'll come right back.
The boys of Steve Barker resist to leave the pitch without a ticket to the semis. But there's a big problem. Kevin Hunt's boys say the last dance of happiness belongs to them. This is the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal battle. Stellies versus Matsatsansa Pitori on Saturday, 13 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Getting more money into your pockets has never been this simple and exciting. With SABC's new Simple Watch and Win game show, you can get more Zaga in your pockets. Catch more Zaga every weekday on SABC1 at 9 p.m. You could win your share of 50,000 Rand. All you have to do to win is give the correct answer for the day. Just dial *120 *33 to hash to register and play. The cost is R1.50 per minute. You could win big with more Zaga. Only on SABC1.
The Saturday.
She said, Simon, that she feels sorry for me. And come to think of it, I've always made people feel sorry for me so that they could give me what I wanted. But when she said those words, I'm telling you, Simon, it was the most painful thing anyone has ever said to me.
Catch me, Lerato Velase, on the Saturday play between 9 and 10 p.m.
You know, I think this is your fault.
Come on, Tato.
Yes, it is your fault, Ray.
I can't take this.
You told the court that you would provide Mpho with everything that she needed. You said I was unfit, an unfit mother. Now you want me to be a part of this mess?
Catch the Saturday play between 9 and 10 p.m. Only on SAFM.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello everyone, I'm Ushvika Talib. Nowadays, it's much easier for kids to pick up bad habits, whether it be food or fitness related, especially with technology being a bigger thing amongst kids these days. It keeps most of them inside the house, and therefore they don't go outside unless they really have to, which is actually quite unhealthy. Even some tuck shops at school affect the health of kids, since they mainly sell unhealthy foods such as fatty lunches, sweets, and sugary drinks. The best way to maintain good health is to stay fit. Even just jogging for 30 minutes to an hour is good enough. We can also stay healthy by making adjustments in our meals and what we eat. For example, you can cut off sugary drinks and replace it with healthy smoothies or water. Another way you can make sure you stay healthy is to go for checkups by the doctor. But me personally, I don't do this. I only see a doctor when I'm really sick. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Hi, my name is Mbali. Yes, I do know 2 things I believe that are bad for your health as a child is not eating healthy and not being fit. We can best maintain good health by ourselves by watching what we eat and at least walking, jogging, or running around someplace. The things we can do to make sure we have good health is going to the doctor. I visit the doctor sometimes once or twice a month. I don't only visit the doctor when I'm sick, but I visit the doctor for checkups.
Hi, my name is Asanda Chabalala and I'm 12 years old from Makoli. No, I did. The 2 things that are unhealthy is eating junk food and not exercising enough. We can maintain a good health by eating healthier and exercising more. I visit the doctor depending on my health. I only visit the doctor when I'm sick.
Hi everyone, I'm Sonaka Malihasi. I'm 10 years old. I live at Middleland Zone 7 and my school is Sumbezo Primary. 2 things that I believe is not good for my health is eating too much junk food, not doing exercise. The best thing we can do to maintain our health is to eat the balanced nutrition in every meal of the day and also doing some exercise. There are some of the things that we can do to make sure that we have good health, like walking, not using vehicles every time. Sometimes I visit the doctor. Yes, I do visit the doctor when I'm sick and also for checkups. Thank you.
My name is Mune Angel Nengobera. Two things that I believe that are bad for our health as children are unhealthy food, snacks, and junk food. They're really bad for our health. And us also not doing some exercise. So if we are eating unhealthy food, we could gain a lot of weight, which could be a problem. We can maintain a good health by eating more vegetables, more fruits, or even have a healthy diet. Some of the things that we can do to make sure that we have good health is to go to the doctor or go research on the internet some healthy food that we can eat, such as healthy snacks and everything like that, so that we don't get too much weight or so that we cannot have any fitness related issues. I don't really visit the doctor a lot of times unless I've got a problem or I'm sick. Yes, I do visit the doctor when I'm sick and also for checkups. Let us learn to always think about the things that we do that affect our health, and let us learn the importance of maintaining good health. Thank you and have a lovely day.
My name is Bana Ramadi. I'm 11 years old. I do understand healthy eating, and my advice to all the children who are listening right now, I would say don't eat unhealthy food all the time. Vegetables and fruits are very good in our bodies, and you must keep eating them. You have to eat healthy foods that will keep you strong and smart.
My name is Notle Kakela, and I'm 10 years old. I love healthy foods more, but also McDonald's. I would like to say please eat your vegetables and less junk food. My mom makes us to eat vegetables. She says they help to make our body strong and healthy. For example, carrots are good for eyes, so I eat veggies because I want to be strong and healthy.
Hello, friends. Have you ever thought about what makes you strong and full of energy? It's your health. Feeling good inside and out is what health is all about. Your health is your wealth. Just like a soldier is vulnerable to attack when off guard, your body is vulnerable to diseases if you neglect your health. In your daily life at school and home, there are things that can either improve or harm your health. In your daily life at school and home, there are things that can either improve or harm your health. Let's discuss them. First, let's talk about food. Eating nutritious food is crucial. Fruits, vegetables, and grains provide the energy you need to play and learn. While sugary snacks and drinks may taste good, they can leave you feeling tired and unwell. Opt for healthy snacks like apples, carrots, or nuts. Secondly, by washing your hands regularly, especially before meals and after using the bathroom, you can stay healthy and strong. Thirdly, staying active is not only fun, but also great for your health. Playing games, running, or dancing strengthens your heart and muscles. It's like giving your body a big hug. So make sure you get outside and be active every day. Lastly, getting enough sleep allows your body and brain to rest and grow. Aim for 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. Sleep is like a magic potion that rejuvenates you and prepares you for a new day of adventures. It's the only way your body recharges itself. So establish a cozy bedtime routine, snuggle up for a good night's sleep. Don't forget that taking care of yourself is absolutely crucial. By nourishing your body with nutritious meals, keeping your hands clean, staying active, and ensuring you get sufficient sleep, you can become the best and happiest version of yourself. So let's celebrate good health together.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
The Saturday Play.
You think you can just come into my life and mess it up and think you will get away with it? Huh, well, I'm sorry, Poti. You're messing with the wrong girl this time.
Catch me, Lerato Velase, on the Saturday Play.
You've always made a fool of me in front of the whole world.
Oh, I'm calling the police.
Be my guest.
Catch the Saturday Play between 9 and 10 p.m. Only on SAFM.
Call the president if you must.
top stories for this hour. Final elections candidate list published by the IEC, and government confirms the scrapping of e-tolls. Good afternoon, I'm Eva Chipa. The IEC has published the final candidate list for the 2024 national and provincial elections on its website. The name of former President Jacob Zuma tops the MK list. Yesterday, the former president won his appeal at the Electoral Court. This has resulted in the reinstatement of his name on the party's list after its exclusion, which was started by objections by two members of the public. Meanwhile, the IEC has requested that the Electoral Court furnish it with reasons for the dismissal of its decision to bar Zuma from standing, given that his counsel had based its appeal on a number of arguments. Government has confirmed that e-tolls will officially be scrapped by midnight tomorrow. The decision came as a result of an agreement between SANRAL, the Gauteng provincial government, and the National Treasury. Government has further emphasized that while e-tolls will soon be a distant memory, road users with outstanding e-tolling debt are still obliged to settle it. Transport Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga addressed a media briefing in Pretoria.
From the 12th of April 2024, road users will no longer be charged for the use of the e-toll network. This means that after midnight tomorrow, e-tolls will no longer exist in South Africa. However, the ring roads that formed part of this scheme will remain national roads. It has been a long process. We started in December 2013 after we upgraded parts of important national roads in Gauteng.
In other news, Judge Violet Semenya says it remains to be determined on whether all accused in the killing of Collins Chabane Municipality Mayor Moses Maluleke may be convicted based on the evidence presented before the court. Semenya is reading her judgment on the matter in the High Court in Polokwane in Limpopo. The five are accused of killing Maluleke at his home in July 2022. Judge Semenya has elaborated on the testimony of state witness Avatakari Muraudzi.
I'm satisfied that he answered questions that was put to him both by the state and the defense. Straightforwardly, he was saying it as it is. It remains to be determined whether any of the accused or all of the accused may be convicted based on the evidence that has been presented before this court by Mulaudzi.
The Eastern Cape Health Department has handed over a vending machine that will help combat the scourge of teenage pregnancy in the country. The machine consists of contraceptives, HIV self-testing kits, morning-after pills, condoms and pregnancy tests, to mention a few. Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Sibongiseni Tlomo, says children younger than 10 years old are falling pregnant.
Not only do we have teenage pregnancies now, we have people who are not yet in the teens. At 10 years and at 9 years, that's not a teenager. And they are already falling pregnant. These are our efforts as a Department of Health to say, more than listening to young people who say, but Dr. Domo, not all your clinics are very friendly to us. We go there reluctantly because we need a service. We are focusing on decreasing or actually eliminating new HIV infections, wanting to reduce or eliminate teenage pregnancies. So this is an add-on to all our strategies.
And lastly, looking further afield, Boeing is facing renewed pressure after a whistleblower reported safety concerns about the manufacturing of some of its jets to U.S. regulators. An engineer, Sam Salepo, has accused the company of taking shortcuts in the construction of its 787 and 777 jets. The BBC's Erin Dalmore has more details.
A former Boeing employee who worked on the 787 accused the company of cutting corners during production and overlooking engineering problems that could weaken the plane's structural integrity. Boeing dismissed the claims as inaccurate and reiterated confidence in the 787 Dreamliner. Meanwhile, the company delivered its lowest number of planes in the first quarter of the year since 2021. Just 83 planes, down from 157 the quarter prior. Boeing executives say the company is slowing down production so that it can improve quality control. But delivery delays are sparking criticism from customers.
Recapping the top story for this hour, the IEC has published the final candidate list for the 2024 national and provincial elections on its website. The name of former President Jacob Zuma tops the MK party list. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Last year, the Masinga hit South Africa like a storm. This year, the Masinga South Africa returns with 16 huge celebrities hidden behind 16 humongous masks. Get ready to be amazed and astonished with brand new masks and performances that are going to blow your mind. Don't miss the biggest television event since Season 1. The Masinga South Africa Season 2 premieres on S3 Saturday 6 April at 6:30 p.m.
When you vote on the 29th of May 2024, you'll receive 3 ballot papers. The blue national ballot is for political parties contesting seats in the National Assembly. The orange regional ballot is for political parties and independent candidates who will represent your area in the National Assembly. The pink ballot is for political parties and independent candidates to represent you in your provincial legislature. Vote where you are registered. Visit elections.org.za for more information. It's your democracy. Own it.
2 years since winning the EFC middleweight title in the most dramatic and controversial fashion, Luke Michael finally defends his belt for the very first time at EFC 112 against the imposing submission machine, J.P. Kruger. And in the co-main event, featherweight champion Iga Smiley Cabeza becomes the next athlete aiming for champ status as he battles the imposing Kaleka Block Kabanda. EFC 112 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Shankana elu ante pisale rato haradi pula lidi fifo ante pisale rato tisi nako isikai mashankano raile muritana meme puo isikai matale olaile mudisana bona heke haibula homudita Hadi hutle, bona heke, haibula, homudita, hadi hutle, mirato li fedile, ke kopari homudibo elesake, mirato li fedile, ke kopari homudibo elesake, homutena, hadibo elesake, homutena, Billing Ashula, Erinkili Kokele, Moshankana Ena, Unea Kupile Mohope Wamneti, Alebala Fono, Hakaka Harafeti, Aukafumana Mulaita, Jomewe, Ikaba Kikaeta Jang, Bona Heke, Haibula, Homudita, Hadi Hutle, Bona Heke, Haibula, Homudita, Hadi Hutle, Ratoli Fedile, Kekopari Homudibo Elesake, Miratoli Fedile, Kekopari Homudibo Elesake, Homutena, Hadibo Elesake, Homutena, Hadibo Elesake.
It is Leo Mele coming through with Lerato Li Fedile. That is, our 2 o'clock song choice. It's just gone 10 past 2 on this fine Wednesday afternoon. I hope you're having a great Wednesday, by the way. I know that the schools are back. They have reopened in the Western Cape, at least the vast majority of them, just a handful, particularly in the Paarl region, that are still closed on account of that bad weather. And I was thinking, as just yesterday, I was like, shush, the bad weather that we had. And I know that we didn't get to experience the eclipse. We didn't get to experience the eclipse the other day in the southern hemisphere, but you know how weather is always sort of interconnected. What happens in the north will have some kind of effect in the south, and so forth and so on. And so I could only conclude that perhaps some of the wild weather that we saw at the beginning of the week was as a result of what was happening so very far away, with the moon pulling and the sun doing all kinds of interesting things. Just a random thought. Coming up right now, though, we are chatting all things Montessori, and we're looking at a Montessori-inspired way of parenting. I must admit that I'm not too familiar with Montessori. I just see the schools everywhere, but I know they have a very specific method. And so we thought we'd catch up with Erica McCoon, who is a Montessori directress, and she has qualifications in the Montessori Early Childhood Diploma. And she's going to enlighten us a little bit more. She also holds a bachelor's from an honors bachelor's, by the way, in education from the Northwest University. How are you doing this afternoon, Erica? You good?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time. Okay, let's start with maybe understanding what is the Montessori method and Montessori way, particularly for those parents who don't have kids who've come through the Montessori education system.
Sure. Montessori has been around for many, many years. It's actually originated in the 1800s. It started with Dr. Maria Montessori, and she was the first female to ever graduate as a medical doctor in Italy. And because she was a female, she wasn't actually allowed to practice, and she was put in a ward with mentally challenged patients of all different ages. And back then in the 1800s, there were no support systems or anything in place. They were just literally forgotten about. And she developed some educational specific materials and specific philosophy on how to address the needs of her patients. And it was actually so successful that her students or patients at the time could eventually take the same exams as the so-called normal children in the mainstreams in the 1800s. So, very interesting because of that success, she decided to resign her post as a medical doctor and pursue the education system. So it's an international philosophy, very established in South Africa as well. It's based on scientific observation of how the child learns.
Yeah.
And it specifically prepares the child for life in general. Sometimes we have a lot of focus on, is the child school ready? Is the child going to be ready for university? The Montessori approach actually addresses the learning for a lifelong learning and preparing the child from a very young age for life. Yes.
So sorry to interject. And then I just wanted to sort of then find out, considering that the approach and the methodology is based on scientific observations on how a child learns, does that then infer that Montessori's method is more beneficial for learners, but also can be individualized to some extent to meet the different challenges and sort of the different needs of children in a classroom?
Absolutely. You've summed it up beautifully. That's exactly what Montessori is, as it follows the child. And it's a very individualized approach. Because of the materials that you'll find in Montessori, we call it environments. It's materials that are designed to help the child to learn and self-correct him or her or themselves. So it is a very individual approach. And when you go and study Montessori, actually, you learn how to observe, and we practice how to keenly observe and learn the needs, to identify the needs and introduce materials to the child that are in line with their specific interests.
Is it also, Erica, something that's more tailor-made to early childhood development? I mean, you make reference to materials, for instance, that are found within a child's environment. And so I'm wondering, and I'm watching some videos here that my producers are popping up for me on YouTube. So is it more a methodology that's more beneficial in the younger years of a child's development, in early childhood development, or is it something that can be carried through even into secondary and senior high school level?
It's definitely something that can be carried through. Like I mentioned, it's a philosophy of education for life. Unfortunately, Maria Montessori passed away before she could actually formalize from 16 years onwards, Montessori curriculum.
Okay.
They are for intermediate phase, but there are been many researchers going into the Montessori tertiary education space internationally, as well as recently there's been programs developed for pensioners in old age homes with dementia, and the ability to enhance or to give them a meaning and still be able to function with their dementia and help with their anxiety as well. So it's a very broad thing. In South Africa, it started off as mainly focusing on the ECD sector, and it has extensively grown over the years to primary school, secondary phase as well.
Well, would you be able to, and I know because it's, radio is an audio medium, maybe it might present a difficulty, but would you be able to paint us maybe a picture of how, or give us an example of how a Montessori method of teaching might look versus a traditional method of teaching in terms of, and I don't know even if it's possible, like, in a traditional classroom, this is how they might instruct this particular thing. And at a Montessori, this is how we might do it using a particular tool or material.
Sure. That's a typical exam question that we would get, so that I would ask my students when I used to lecture. So when in a typical Montessori or in a Montessori school, let's take, for example, the age of a 5 to 6 year olds, a lot of the presentations are one-on-one. So the ratio is very low in a Montessori school. The children work independently, which in the more mainstream schools that there's a teacher and there's a group lesson, for example, on how to understand the quantity of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, where they would sit in a group with a teacher in the mainstream schools, and they would use certain materials and then worksheets and then little rhymes and so forth to learn, which is effective in itself. But when you go to the Montessori setting, how it would look like would be the guide would identify what activity the specific child needs to do for that day, while the other children are busy with little activities that they choose and work with through, there's always more than one guide in a classroom.
Okay.
And a teacher is called a guide, just for clarity. So when the other children are busy working, the directress or the guide will choose the activity, for example, 1 to 5, invite the child to come and work with her. The child will come and sit, and the guide will know which materials she wants to use to first introduce a concept, for example, numbers, in a very concrete way. So there's a very specific designed materials, for example, called the number rods, which are measured to the millimeter of how much it represents the quantity of 1. Then it represents the quantity of 2, which is double the size, and then the quantity of 3, which is exactly 3 times the size.
I see.
And we tend to talk less and show more. So the child will observe, and we'll show them, and they will use their senses a lot to feel the difference between a quantity of 1 and a quantity of 2 and a quantity of 3, to understand what it means before we start, for example, with this is number 1, number 2, number 3.
Okay.
That's just one example of many.
Absolutely. And then let's talk about, obviously, if you're teaching in this particular way, then it also means that at home, these sort of teaching ethos and methods need to then be followed through in the home environment. Now, how does Montessori then foster that through parenting?
Correct. So we've got, there's a little bit of a myth around Montessori that it's very expensive and you have to have all of the materials, but actually it's very easy to enforce Montessori in the home environment. So me, myself, I'm a parent at the moment of a delightful little toddler. And we have a module in the Montessori curriculum that's called Practical Life or Everyday Living. And that is basically is including the child in everything at home. So, for example, if you're going to do the dishes, very easily help your child, give her a little step or him a little step, show them how to wash the dishes, let them get involved because they are learning so much through that. So just by letting them help with gardening, letting them pick up the pebbles and naturally start counting. So we don't want to force it. They learn it through play. That makes such a difference. And that is the ethos, or that's the beginning foundation of Montessori, is learning through play and learning through real objects in the environment. So as parents, it's really easy just to include them. And if you know yourself, if you have young children, you'll see that independence growing about, I want to.
Yeah.
It's mine. And that's a natural thing for them to want to explore and to give them options then to be able to explore within safety limits.
Okay. I mean, very interesting, because I think the last thing one would want, and parents speak about this all the time, is there's got to be a continuity in how you do things. And the last thing you would want is that whatever is taught in school and in class to then be broken in the home every day. And I wonder, in terms of just also building that consciousness with parents, is there some kind of over and above the curricula, the at-home curricula, is there over and above a sort of support for parents whose kids are in the Montessori system, for them to also just continue the loop of it and making sure that they themselves are very much consistent with what needs to happen in the household?
Absolutely. The South African Montessori Association in short, SAMA. You can go on their website. It's samontessori.org.za. They've got lots of research about Montessori, lots of a list of very well schools with good reputation of doing Montessori providing quality education. They answer a lot of Q&As. There's Q&As there for that are frequently asked by parents, their support groups. So any questions you'd like to ask as a parent or even as a educator, Montessori educator or a student, the South African Montessori Association is very useful. There's also a lot of materials to read. There's one book called Understanding the Montessori Approach, written by Barbara Isaacs, which is a very simple, very thin, easy to read book about the Montessori method. And when you join the Montessori school, normally the teachers or the guides will be very explanatory and will have on their website a whole explanation of how it works, and through their newsletters communicate how this can be interlinked and how parents can support what they are doing at school.
As we wrap it up, Erica, I just got a message from, I think, a parent of someone in the Montessori system, and they say it's a good system and delivers good quality, especially in the early years. The system, however, isn't that robust against outside influences, example, kids who come from other schools in later years. And then I want to settle on that. Is it easy to then also integrate your child out of Montessori ECD, for instance, into a more traditional system later on in life, like a traditional high school or traditional primary?
Yes. Yeah. So that question actually does pop up a lot. In my experience, I've had a couple of years experience, over 10 years experience of working in the ECT field. And then I specifically moved to the primary school setting to understand and experience for myself how the transition happens for a Montessori child. Will they be able to cope when they start in this specifically South African curriculum, the CAPS curriculum, in public schools or even private schools, the Cambridge curriculum, for example. So you have to remember it depends on the child. Every child is unique. So, and there's different aspects that speaks to a child's development and whether they're able to adapt or not. The Montessori curriculum is one aspect of it. We have had a lot of success actually with children transitioning due to the fact of when they're in the class, in a Montessori environment, they learn to work independently and choose different activities. So when they go into a bigger classroom where there's 30 to 40 children sometimes in the classroom, and the teacher is busy with, okay, you have to do this activity and then you have to do that activity in your reading book. The child has learned to already organize and plan for himself. Okay, when I'm done with this, I can independently, I don't have to wait for my teacher. I am confident to work independently.
Yeah.
And that's one of the instances. And as well, we foster leadership skills because uniquely in a Montessori environment, we have mixed age groups, which is very different. But when a child moves from an ECD, a Montessori ECD with mixed age groups, that child has had the opportunity to be a leader, but also have learned to be the youngest and learn from older children, but then have a responsibility to be the leader.
Sure.
And that helps them a lot when they move on to bigger schools, bigger classrooms. Just to come back to...
We have to wrap it there, unfortunately, Erica. I've got the headline news coming up now in just a matter of seconds, but we appreciate your insights today. That was Erica Makoon, who is the Montessori Directress, joining us in conversation. 2:30, time for the headline news.
In news making headlines for this hour, one person has been injured in a shooting incident at a shopping centre on Kensington Drive in Durban North. It's believed to be linked to a store robbery. In other news, SANRAL CEO Reginald Demana says the National Treasury and the Gauteng provincial government remain responsible to settle the historic outstanding e-toll debt of 43 billion rand. He says National Treasury has also approved a borrowing limit mechanism which will allow SANRAL to borrow money from the private sector for future road infrastructure investments. And lastly, the IEC has published the final candidate list for the 2024 national and provincial elections on its website. The name of former President Jacob Zuma tops the MK list. I'll be back at 3 with more stories. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
The Saturday.
What are you doing to her?
Oh, we are just friends.
What? You were kissing her. Damn it. You're too old. Oh,
please,
my daughter is only 17 for this.
Please.
You'll get a good... Catch me, Errol Ndoto, on the Saturday Play.
Are you all family?
I'm her father, and this is my ex-wife, Paul's mother.
And him?
No, he's not family. He's just a useless, toothless dog.
Sir. Catch the Saturday Play between 9 and 10 p.m. Only on SAFM.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Living your best life on the Full Circle.
I mean, that is what we endeavor to do, right? Every single day is to reach a level of self-actualization where we are happy and content through all the conversations that we bring you on the Full Circle Monday to Friday between 1 and 3 o'clock. And reaching a level of contentment, we're calling all thrill seekers. You know that most Africa is the hotspot. Particularly, we're going to be biased, particularly South Africa. She is the girl she thinks she is, with our landscapes and our captivating wildlife, and of course our historical sites and ancient places of tradition. But planning a trip can be a little bit daunting from time to time, and so the folks at Google South Africa have decided to make things a little bit easier for everybody that's trying to explore everything that Africa has to offer. And we thought we'd catch up with Sia Madigane, who is Google South Africa Communications and Public Affairs Manager, to find out about the new Google AI chat platform that we can utilize and some of the things that it's got to offer for us. How are you doing, Sia?
Well, and you, Bridget?
I'm fantastic. Cannot complain at all, indeed. All right, so you know, we are the place that we think we are on this African continent of ours. There's so much to do, so much to be seen, but it really can be a lot. Even if you hit your search engine, just typing what to do in South Africa is a laundry list of things. So how has Google made this easier? Where do we begin?
Cool. Thanks, Bridget, for that, and thanks for inviting me to your show. Hi to your listeners as well. What we've done from a Google perspective really is launch Gemini, which is our conversational AI tool, which really helps people to write, plan, learn, and so much more. And so what we're doing with Gemini in this instance, we put together a list just to showcase to South Africans and Africans at large how this tool can help them be able to navigate and travel across the continent. And so that's what we've done.
Now, what makes this tool, sort of different and I guess more specific and user-friendly than just the traditional Google search, for instance?
Yes, of course. As I said, it's a conversational tool. So really what's interesting about this tool is that you can actually use it interactively as you go on your journey. So as soon as I always make this example around traveling to Accra, Ghana, which is a place that I regular visit. So you would first of all plan your trip as any other trip. You would go into the tool, you tell it that you want to travel across the continent. Where can you go? What type of sort of musical festivals, if you're into music, art festivals, if you're in art, and you pull up a few options for you, and then what you do following that, you then go, right, now that I've seen that there's Afro Nation that takes place in Ghana in December, where can I stay? How can I travel to get there? And then how long will it take me to get there? And that all that information will come up interactively within a split second. Once you receive that, you then be able to then land in Accra, be able to understand the nuances and the local history, the context of where you are. That the tool itself immediately then be able to as well pull up that information as well. And then also you'd want to know, besides Afro Nation, what else am I doing here? And interactively so you add and say, hey, actually, Afro Nation starts at 2. I feel like doing something else. What else can I do? And it will come up and say, maybe there's some restaurants that are interested in Jamestown. And then you go to Jamestown. And so it's more very much like, of course, it uses all the other sort of products that we have within the Google space. So it uses YouTube, it uses search. I had you mention search earlier on.
Yeah.
And it really collates, and it's a multimodal sort of where you're searching, where it uses on images, sound, a written word, and a couple of other things to be able to give you the best sort of results as you're traveling across the continent.
Yeah. Now, listen, as you're talking, Sia, right, a lot of our listeners who are well-traveled go, the one thing that we always discover when you go outside of the boundaries of the continent is that you realize how a smartphone is actually smart in first world territories. It actually
100%.
It functions
100%.
optimally versus what it does when we are here, right? So I wonder with this kind, because you're painting me a picture and I go, oh, okay, that makes the same kind of, for me at least how I'm seeing it, it would give me the same kind of experience that my phone and search engines would give me if I'm in Europe or in America, for instance. And you know, where it's information that's really just correlated for your convenience at any given point in time. And am I surmising it correct that for those who are well-traveled, it would give you a similar but more nuanced experience where your phone really becomes your best friend who's taking you on a personalized guide?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. It's almost, you can download the app as well just to play with it. I would really encourage the listeners to do that. Download it, start giving it prompts. It's almost like you're having a conversation with it and going, I'm lost. I'm in the corner of the street and I'm in Accra. I don't ask anyone else. And it will pull up that information for you almost immediately. And then you'll be able to make a decision that will then guide you to the right spots. Yes, you're saying it's really like your best friend as you're traveling across the world or Africa. I think, as I said already, it works on both on Android devices as well as on iOS, and really would encourage the listeners to download it and start using it.
Yeah. You guys have actually pinpointed 6 ways that Gemini, the Google AI chat platform, ultimately improves our travel experience. Run us through some of those.
Yes, just before I run through, I just want to make sure that we understand that doesn't only just help with travel. As I said, it helps you with writing. So if you're writing a letter to your loved one, and you really want to make sure that the grammar is proper and correct, and it sounds better, it really gives it that little bit of extra zing to whatever you're writing. And so it does a lot of other things. But in this instance, we put together a list just to help people understand what they would use it for travel. So one of the things that it really would do is really, as I said, it would ignite your wanderlust. It would make you want to plan and give you ideas and make sure that you understand the cultural nuances of wherever you're supposed to go to. But two, it will also help you deep dive into sort of local history, give you the context of that you need. So sometimes, language is a barrier across the continent with different languages. It would really help you just understand those little things that you're supposed to sort of say or not say when you're traveling. And obviously, as mentioned, to connect with local experiences. So if you are in Ghana, it will be able to tell you what happens in Jamestown and why you should go there, what happens at the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum and why you should go there, or the Black Star Square, what happens there, really just bring you closer to exactly what that experience should look like as you're traveling. And then also to help you master some basic phrases. So that is very important as you're traveling. I heard you mentioning that when you travel in Europe, the language, as you said, is a big thing, that it can really help you navigate yourself. If you are in Senegal, for instance, where they speak Wolof, and you don't speak any of those languages, how do you get around? You are there with your partner who speaks more or less the same languages as you. How do you get around? It's there, and it really helps. And it also, just to let you know, it's available in Africa on Swahili.
Lovely.
So imagine if you're traveling and you can speak Swahili, you can actually use it as well. And then you can also navigate local customs, which is a very key thing. You know how it can be with African culture, your respect and making sure that you wear the right clothing, you wear the right shoes. It really can give you tipping etiquette and also maybe just help you decide on what to put on for the day depending on your schedule.
Yeah.
And then it can also finally help you discover hidden gems. We all know the big parts, like I've already mentioned, what you do in Ghana, but in reality, there's other places that I've actually used and discovered. There was a bridge that I wanted to visit when I was in Ghana, trips back, and that was just because I picked it up. I just forgot the name now, but I just picked it up from the tour, and I was like, I would have loved to go on there if I had time. But it really does that, and so much more.
Lovely. I mean, listen, it definitely sounds like it's going to be my new best friend, particularly in discovering all kinds of interesting territories on the continent. And you get a gold star for mentioning my two favorite countries on the continent, Senegal alongside Ghana. Sia, thank you for the time today. That was Sia Madikane. He is Google South Africa's Communications and Public Affairs Manager. So that tool is there for you to use as presented by Google. It's called Gemini, and it's an AI chat platform that you can integrate into your phone, and it can help with travel, but so many other things. They have a lot of interesting resources. I once was in a room with Google Africa's head, and there's so many resources for parenting, for entrepreneurs, and free resources that they offer on Google that I think a lot of people don't know about, in fact, that could just help in so many ways, from your business to your personal. Let's take a quick break here, and then we'll come back and find out what's coming up today. What is on the nation's pulse with Ashraf?
The Spanish princess tells the riveting story of Catherine of Aragon, a woman who has an eye on the English throne, and nothing and no one is going to stand in her way. It's a vivid and captivating reclaiming of Catherine's story, which has historically been overshadowed by her infamous marriage to King Henry VIII. Tune in to drama, plots, romance, the twists and turns. Stay for the suspense. Channel your inner royalty with The Spanish Princess. Starts Saturday the 6th of April at 9:30 p.m. only on S3.
The boys of Steve Barker resist to leave the pitch without a ticket to the semis. But there's a big problem. Kevin Hunt's boys say the last dance of happiness belongs to them. This is the Nedbank Cup quarterfinal battle. Stellies versus Matatsanza Pitori on Saturday 13 April at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
We don't yet have the formal reasons for this decision. Do you have any insight at this stage into why the Electoral Court made the decision?
Well, we don't know the reasons, but we can talk to the merits of our appeal. One being on the issue of bias, but also citing the wrong legislation of the law in a form of Section 47(1)(e). That in of itself then obviously becomes the second grounds at which we then lodged our appeal. Section 47(1)(e), Stephen, is a piece of legislation that gives powers to the National Assembly to make a determination on membership, not for the IEC to make a determination and to invoke on the basis of candidacy.
And Klamola Nklela, thank you very much indeed. Spokesperson for the political party Umkhonto weSizwe, you with SAFM.
SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes, 6 to 9 a.m. SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
All right, it's just a matter of moments before he comes through at 3 o'clock, and we thought we'd find out from Ashraf Gada. Firstly, how was your OB yesterday?
It was very good. I mean, Freedom Park, impressive building. In fact, here's the question. I told them, I was like, it's besides its historical value, it is such an important go-to tourism site, and it's not marketed to any degree that it should. It needs to be in our faces. So when, especially we get, for example, I went to the Rwandan Genocide Museum. When you get there, like you just know you have to go there. So like they need to know they have to go there, and they don't know that.
Listen, I'm an arts and culture specialist, and I've never been there myself. So
that should tell you that.
That should tell you something. So, what's coming up today?
Well, lots of things, but first up we'll chat to the Premier of Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, about the bells tolling for e-tolls. I believe tonight is finish and clear. Okay, so you know that. Then there's this 1-year-old conflict in the Sudan, and we talk about the humanitarian displacement because of the conflict. Once again, it's about people. And when political parties and people meddle, leadership, it's the people who are affected, and it's really sad. So we'll talk about that. And then, today in South Africa, the last day of Ramadan. Inshallah, I'm taking from what you say, if God wills, right? And yesterday we spoke to the Reverend on the show. You may have heard about it. And he made the point about the impact of Ramadan in social society. So we're going to chat to Dr. Qureisha Suleiman about just that. Not about the fasting and the prayer, because we know that, but the social impact of Ramadan in broader South African society. That means not in Muslim society, just broadly, and the impact. So looking forward to that conversation.
Oh, that should be a fabulous one. Listen, from a retail perspective, Ramadan has affected me. Like on a light note, there was something that I wanted, and they didn't bring it into Johannesburg. It went straight to Cape Town and Durban.
Oh my goodness!
And I was like, okay, I understand why.
There's a big market there. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a big market there. That's coming up. All those conversations coming up 3 to 6 with Ashraf Gada this afternoon. Let's take a quick pause, and then we'll come through and wrap it up from our side.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
As we wrap up the show with Tarina Falk, my final guest today, MD at Elite Risk Acceptances for Old Mutual Insure. And we're looking at, just some of the impact of the extreme weather conditions, particularly in Cape Town. We saw how that weather just wreaked havoc all over the Western Cape, specifically in the Paarl regions. And we just thought we'd touch base. We always touch base with insurers after such events to find out what do you need to know. How are you doing, Tarina? You good?
I'm very good. Good afternoon. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you, as always, for joining us. Okay, let's talk about the specific risks that the HNWI faces, particularly when it comes to weather-related losses.
Look, it's become very clear over the last couple of seasons that certain areas have become vulnerable to weather-related damages. So whether you're a high-net-worth individual or not, homeowners are exposed to property damages if there are extreme weather events like we saw over the weekend. We've had reports of severe damages, and they're still coming in. So there was really, really terrible damages caused by those incredibly strong winds that was experienced in the area.
And I mean, some people look at these events and aren't really bothered because some folks are not insured. So conversations like this don't pertain to them. But that in itself is a cause to worry, considering how we've been seeing weather patterns wreaking havoc on structural places, whether it's your dwelling or whatever. And so you need to be insured, and not insured for a variety of things.
Absolutely. And there are various options. Look, you get from the basic cover that's obviously more affordable, up to totally comprehensive cover where you're almost covered against anything. But I mean, I've seen today, again, people are under financial strain, but it is really, really advisable to rather speak to your broker to restructure your policy rather than totally not being insured.
Are there also, Tarina, any gaps that you guys are picking up as trends? Any gaps emerging in these high net worth claims, or any questions that are arising that are being presented to y'all as insurers in this sector?
Look, the gaps. It's obviously an emerging risk, this weather, changing weather patterns. So that is something that we as insurers, as well as homeowners, need to navigate. We need to find a way, and the insurers are working very hard on that, not to push the entire cost of these increased incidents through to the client, but finding innovative ways to mitigate these risks. So collaboration is a key, and that is one thing that I've seen. Another is that, we've had numerous claims in that area over the weekend. So have other insurers, and there are only that number of assessors and contractors that can do the work. So a very important gap that we've noticed is that often high net worth individuals have their own service providers that they would prefer to do the work. So it's really advisable to have a chat with your broker or your insurer to determine what the contract allows, whether you can use your own contractor or whether you are forced contractually to make use of the contractors of the insurers.
And just looking at some of the common losses, what kind of losses have people suffered?
I've only had view of the really big ones. It's mostly structural damages, mostly to buildings. We've had a couple of roofs totally blown off. Totally blown off. Can you imagine how scary that must be?
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody who was actually in their house at the time that the roof blew off.
Wow.
But other damages often caused by falling trees, and that can cause damages to walls, other structures, and of course vehicles. And then roof damages are also something, not necessarily totally blown off, but roof damages are also something quite common in such extreme weather events.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit also about heritage properties. South Africa, Western Cape region has its fair share of these categories of properties, heritage properties, and we saw obviously, with the fires in Parliament, how we can be caught sleeping as a nation and as municipalities. So what should we be considering when it comes to these heritage properties and institutions, just to safeguard them from future sort of losses or future damage, and ensuring that they are, pun intended, insured?
Oh, absolutely. That's the first thing. They need to be insured. I mean, I'm sure you saw that the homestead at Blaarklippen was totally destroyed in a fire in this storm. So I think the most important thing with the heritage properties is to ensure that it's properly insured. Remember that it's most often more expensive to reinstate or rebuild those properties because of the various interests of the Heritage Council and also the unique nature of the finishes that would probably have to be handmade, you know?
Yeah.
So that's important, very important to ensure that they're properly maintained, because it can happen often that heritage properties fall into disrepair, and then obviously they are more vulnerable to storm damages.
Absolutely.
Having said that, Blaarklippen was in pristine condition, so I'm not saying anything about that. So try to get photographs or original plans of the building, because as heritage property, you're not allowed to change the facade of the property. So you know, all of those things, make sure that you have a good relationship with your heritage official. All of that will help insurers to be able to reinstate the property if something happened to it.
Yeah. Just a curveball, Tarina, as we prepare to wrap it up. As we're speaking about heritage properties and maintaining them and ensuring that they're in pristine conditions, because sometimes they can weather depending on the levels of what's going on. They can weather some of the storm. You know, they can take some of that impact if they are upkept well. Is there a way to have conversations with insurers perhaps about some kind of maintenance insurance or maintenance plan? Because it takes so much capital to also just make sure that these buildings are up to code, you know, continuously.
Yeah, look, in my previous life, I explored possibilities of that, and that would be extremely costly. I know that there are options like that in Europe, but I'm not aware of maintenance policies in South Africa. But so it is really important to make sure that you keep a fund available for the maintenance of your property. And you know what? If it's done regularly, it's not that expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Just in our last minute, literally, any tips for you know, particularly the high net worth individuals in as far as protecting assets once we get those weather warnings? You know, are we ripping the art off the wall and putting it in vaults? Maybe one or two tips?
I think the first tip I would say is ensure that you have access to your insurer's assistance services number, so that you can phone them if something happens. And if you have a claim, work with your assessor and insurer, and that will help for speedy resolution. And finally, just be safe. Really, really. I mean, I was horrified to hear about the things that happened to some people during the storm.
No, that storm was horrendous. It was absolutely just devastating. Tarina, we appreciate the time with you. That was Tarina Falk, MD at Elite Risk Acceptance for Old Mutual Insure. That is how we wrap things up on our end. We thank you so much for always choosing to be in conversation with us. We don't take it for granted at all. You could be anywhere and you choose to be here Monday to Friday, 1 until 3 o'clock. The conversation doesn't end with us, though. It continues with Ashraf Gara 3 until 6 o'clock this evening. But we will see you tomorrow. Let's go out and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful sunny day in Johannesburg. And hopefully the sun is shining in your corner of the country as well, as our Islamic listeners prepare to usher in what's going to be beautiful Eid celebrations. We're keeping our eyes to the skies to ensure those sightings that must happen. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again tomorrow.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za.
Top stories at 3. One injured in a store robbery in Durban. And IEC publishes the final elections candidate list. Good afternoon. I'm Eva Chipam. One person has been injured in a shooting incident at a shopping centre on Kensington Drive in Durban North. It is believed to be linked to a store robbery. Advanced Life Support Paramedic spokesperson Gareth Jameson explains.
Paramedics responded to the scene and found security and SAPS already in attendance, and were shown through to a shop that had allegedly been robbed by criminals. Paramedics found one male, believed to be in his 40s, who had sustained a single gunshot wound to his leg. He was stabilized on scene by Advanced Life Support Paramedics before being